Okay, so I really need you to explain the photo you dropped in the shared drive this morning. Because for those of you listening, I'm looking at a professional wrestler, clearly.
Yeah, he's definitely a wrestler.
Right, but he's standing on the turnbuckle looking very triumphant, and instead of the usual, I don't know, sparkly spandex or baby oil, he looks like he just parked a Vespa outside a coffee shop in 1964.
It is a pretty jarring image the first time you see it, isn't it?
It's totally wild. He's wearing a literal parka and a tailored suit underneath. He looks like he's about to start a fight between the mods and the rockers on Brighton Beach, not wrestle a match.
Well, that visual dissonance is exactly the point.
No.
Because you are looking at Flash Morgan Webster. And that aesthetic isn't an accident or a wardrobe malfunction. It is the entire engine of his career. He has built this global reputation by being the MODfather of professional wrestling.
The MODfather. That feels like such a specific, almost niche flavor to bring into a wrestling ring. I mean, usually gimmicks are really broad, right? Like, I'm a scary monster, I am a rich guy. But I appreciate the British subculture of the mid-1960s feels like a very deep cut.
It is a deep cut, but honestly, that's why it works so well. The mod subculture, if you think about The Who or the movie Quadrophenia, the sharp suits, the scooters, the soul music, it was all about working class kids aspiring to a higher style.
Right, looking sharp.
Exactly, looking clean and sharp even if you were living in a really gritty reality.
Which, now that you say it, actually fits the wrestling narrative perfectly.
Yeah.
Because wrestling is gritty and sweaty and painful,
Yeah.
but you're constantly trying to present this polished, larger-than-life superhero image.
Precisely. And Webster, whose real name is Gavin Watkins, he's from Bryn Mawr in Wales.
Yeah.
He took that very British, very working class cool and just weaponized it. But the reason we're doing a deep dive on him today for you all isn't just because he dresses well.
Right, we have a ton of source material here spanning his whole career.
Yeah, from the British independent circuit to WWE to Impact Wrestling. And our mission today is really to understand how this guy from Wales used this distinct persona and incredible technical adaptability to become a history-making champion in multiple major promotions.
Well, let's talk about that in-ring style. Because looking at him, he is not a giant. The stats we have say he's 5'9", about 165 pounds. In the land of wrestling giants, that's pretty small. So I assume he's flying around a lot.
He is. He's absolutely a high flyer. He can do the 450 splashes, the dives to the outs, all the things you really need to do to survive as a smaller guy in the modern era. But if he was just a high flyer, he'd be one of 1,000 guys doing flips right now.
So what's the differentiator?
Webster's different because he blends that aerial ability with a very traditional European technical wrestling style. It's a true hybrid style.
Okay, pause there for a second. Because I hear technical style a lot when I watch wrestling, but I've never really understood what it means mechanically.
Yeah.
What is he actually doing that's different from just punching a guy?
So imagine the pace of a match. A high flyer wants the fast chaos movement confusion. A European technical wrestler wants to slow everything down to a grinding halt. It's all about leverage.
Leverage like joint manipulation.
Exactly. It's about grabbing a wrist and twisting it in a way that the joint isn't supposed to move, and then using that pain to dictate exactly where your opponent's body goes.
So it's almost like chess versus checkers.
Yeah, it's chess where you are physically hurting the other player's pieces. Webster will hit a high-speed move to completely disorient you, but the second you hit the mat, he's not posing for the crowd. He is grabbing a limb. He's tying you in knots.
That makes him incredibly dangerous then.
Very, because he can wrestle the big guys by chopping them down systematically, or he can wrestle the fast guys by just grounding them. It lets him work with literally anyone.
And that adaptability makes total sense. If you can only do flips and you fight a guy who catches you, you're basically done. But if you can grapple, you always have a plan B.
And that is exactly what has kept him employed for well over 15 years. But before he settled on the MODfather persona, which is just a great nickname, by the way, he went through the usual identity crisis that almost most indie wrestlers go through.
Oh, I saw this in the notes, and I desperately need to talk about it right now. Because he has wrestled as Flash Morgan. He's been simply Morgan Webster. But there is one name on this list that stopped me dead in my tracks. Kevin McAllister.
Yes, the one and only.
Please tell me you mean the child from Home Alone.
The very same.
How does that work? Was he setting paint cans on strings in the arena? Was he dropping hot irons on people's faces? How does that translate to a wrestling match?
Look, the independent scene, especially early on, is a place for pure experimentation. Sometimes that experimentation is brilliant, and sometimes it's literal slapstick comedy.
I mean, I'd pay to see it.
Right, and I don't have the footage of those specific matches, but you can imagine a young wrestler trying to find any connection with the audience. Everyone loves Home Alone, right? It gets a cheap pop, but
Yeah.
it is a novelty act. You cannot be a serious champion as a kid who got left behind by his parents in Paris.
Yeah, there's a very hard ceiling on that gimmick. The MODfather sounds like a champion. Kevin McAllister sounds like the opening match at a local birthday party.
Thankfully, he pivoted away from that. And he started really grinding. If we look at the timeline, he debuts in 2010. And for the next several years, he is just traveling up and down the UK, wrestling for Celtic wrestling, often for very, very little money.
The totally unglamorous side of the business.
Very much so. But this is actually where the most important relationship of his entire career begins. Because in 2011, he teams up with a guy named Mark Andrews to defeat a team called Method and Madness.
Mark Andrews. That name comes up constantly in this story. Every time I turned a page in the research, there was Mark Andrews.
You really cannot tell the story of Flash Morgan Webster without Mark Andrews. They were opponents at first and then partners. They spent years in cars together, driving to tiny shows, sleeping on floors, wrestling in front of maybe 50 people.
Which has to build a crazy amount of chemistry.
A level of chemistry you just cannot teach, because in wrestling, you are literally putting your life and your body in someone else's hands. Trust is the currency. And Webster and Andrews developed a massive shared bank account of trust very early on.
So they're cutting their teeth in Wales, doing the hard miles. But at some point, he has to break out right. He can't just stay local forever if he wants to make a real living.
The breakout really starts around 2015, and it's not just about who he's beating, but the caliber of talent he is standing across the ring from.
Yeah.
I want you to look at the names he faced in this specific period.
Okay, let's see. I see Zack Sabre Jr. I know he's huge. Keith Lee, also massive. Wait, he beat Will Ospreay.
He did, yes.
Even I know Will Ospreay. He is like the god of modern wrestling right now. He's absolute headline news.
He is arguably the best in the world today. But in 2015, Webster beat him. And that tells you two really important things. One, the UK scene at that time was an absolute pressure cooker of generational talent. You had future global superstars battling in literal bingo halls.
And two, it means Webster was keeping up with them.
Exactly. He wasn't just a warm body to be tossed around. He was actually winning.
And this leads right into his run in Progress Wrestling, right? I've heard of them. They were like the cool punk rock promotion in London.
Progress was the epicenter. It was to British wrestling what CBGB's was to punk music. Webster completely thrived there. He won their Natural Progression Series 2 tournament by beating Zach Gibson in the finals. That tournament is specifically designed to highlight the next big thing.
Wow, so a huge stamp of approval.
Huge. But he also won a match with a name that, well, I always have to explain it to American audiences.
Oh, I see it here in the source material. The Thunder Bastard match.
The Thunder Bastard match, yes.
I just love British slang so much. It sounds absolutely incredible,
Yeah.
but I have no idea what it actually implies. Is it a weapon? A type of weather system?
It's essentially a chaotic multi-man survival match. Just think of it as a demolition derby with human bodies. Winning that at Chapter 64 earned him a title shot. It proved he could handle pure chaos. But I actually want to highlight something that happened in Revolution Pro Wrestling around this same time because it teaches us something crucial about the business of wrestling.
Okay, this is RevPro. Is this where he won the Cruiserweight title?
Yeah, he won the RevPro British Cruiserweight Championship from Ryan Smile in December 2017. It's a huge moment. The crowd goes wild, the culmination of a massive chase.
And then wait, the notes say he lost it 5 days later.
5 days to Curtis Chapman.
That just seems, I don't know, cruel or just bad planning. Why give a guy the championship belt if you're going to take it away before he can even wear it at the grocery store?
It feels incredibly cruel, but in wrestling booking, it is a very specific device. It's called volatility. Yeah, because if everyone holds a title for 6 months, the audience gets comfortable, they start predicting the shows, and they stop worrying about their favorite guy losing on a random Tuesday. By having Webster lose it in 5 days, the promoter sends a very clear message. Do not blink, because anything can happen here.
Oh, I see. So it's tragic for the character, but it's fantastic for the show's ratings.
Exactly. And honestly, it makes him the underdog again instantly. And being the underdog is where Webster absolutely shines. Which brings us to the big leagues, because WWE comes calling in 2018.
This is during that period where WWE was basically trying to buy up every talented person in the UK to start their own brand right.
It was the NXT UK expansion. They scooped up Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate, and of course Flash Morgan Webster. He debuts at WrestleMania Access, where he actually loses to Pete Dunne. He competes in the UK Championship Tournament. He's on 205 Live, teaming with Cedric Alexander and Mustafa Ali. He is suddenly on a massive global platform.
But the peak, like the absolute cinematic climax of his career up to this point, has to be Cardiff. I was reading the recaps of this event, and the atmosphere sounded completely insane.
NXT UK Takeover Cardiff, August 31st, 2019. You really have to understand the cultural context here. WWE rarely does major premium live events in Wales. So you have a stadium full of Welsh fans who are just absolutely desperate for a hometown hero.
And they get Webster and Mark Andrews.
The hometown boys.
Look.
Reunited. They are booked in a triple threat tag team match for the titles. It's them versus Gallus, who are these big, bruising Scotsmen, and the grizzled young veterans James Drake and Zach Gibson, who are just absolute masters at making people hate them.
So the stage is perfectly set. You've got the foreign threats, the pure villains, and the local underdog heroes.
And the match itself is a masterpiece of emotion. There are so many moments where it looks like they've lost. The crowd is agonizing over every single near fall. And when Webster and Andrews finally hit their finish and get the noise in that building, it's not just cheering. It is a collective, cathartic release.
Because they became the first Welsh champions in WWE history?
First ever. And they did it together. Think about that narrative arc. They start in 2011 in tiny gyms in front of literally nobody. 8 years later, they are standing in the middle of Cardiff, holding gold belts for the biggest wrestling company on earth, with their countrymen screaming their names. That is the ultimate dream.
It's the movie ending. You just roll the credits right there.
You'd really think so. But professional wrestling doesn't stop for happy endings. They had a decent run with the belts. In June 2021, they actually formed a really cool faction called Subculture with a female wrestler named Dani Luna.
Oh, right. I read about this. It really leaned heavy into that mod aesthetic, right? Using specific music genres and looks to unify the three of them.
Exactly. It was a great package. But then the harsh reality of the corporate wrestling world hit.
August 2022. The release.
WWE released a massive wave of talent as contracts ended and budgets were cut. Webster and Andrews were let go.
I just cannot imagine what that feels like. You're on top of the world, you're making history in your home country, and then you get a phone call and you're just unemployed.
It's completely devastating. And for a lot of guys, that really is the end of the road. They fade away. They go back to the local indies and just kind of exist on nostalgia. You know, they sell 8x10s that say, "Remember when I was in WWE?"
But Webster didn't do that.
No, he didn't. And this is where the resilience part of our deep dive really comes into focus. Because he didn't reinvent himself as some bitter new character. He didn't try to erase his past. He took the Subculture brand, Webster Andrews and Dani Luna, and he took it straight to Impact Wrestling, which is now known as TNA.
That's a huge jump, because Impact is on American television. It's a totally different environment than the UK indie scene or even NXT UK.
It's very different. The production style is different. The camera work is different. The wrestling pacing is much more TV-centric. And they didn't just show up to smile and wave to the crowd. In May 2023, they debuted and immediately targeted the Impact World Tag Team Champions ABC Ace, Austin, and Crispy.
And they chased them for a while, right? It wasn't just instant gratification where they walk in and win.
No. They actually failed at first. They lost at an event called Under Siege. And honestly, that failure is really important. It showed the American audience that they weren't just being handed things because they were ex-WWE guys. They had to earn their spot here, too.
So when did they finally climb the mountain again?
Slammiversary 2023. This is one of Impact's absolute biggest shows of the year. They are in a four-way tag match. So it's Subculture versus ABC versus Brian Myers and Moose versus Rich Swann and Sami Callihan.
So absolute chaos again.
Total chaos. And once again, amidst all that noise and bodies flying everywhere, Webster and Andrews walked out with the Impact World Tag Team Championships.
That is seriously impressive. Because to win titles in WWE is one thing. That's a huge achievement. But to get fired, cross the ocean, go to a rival company on American TV and win their titles too, that proves the first time wasn't a fluke.
It completely validates them as a world-class tag team, regardless of whatever corporate logo is on the turnbuckle. They joined a very, very short list of people who have held tag team gold in both of those companies.
But looking at the timeline data here, This reign in Impact was also kind of short.
Yeah, it was about 6 weeks. They ended up losing the belts to the Rascals Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz at an event called Emergence.
Is that frustrating for a wrestler? To climb the mountain again, prove all the doubters wrong, and then get shoved off a month later?
I mean, I'm sure personally it stings a bit in the moment. You want to be the champion forever. You want that long run.
Yeah.
But professionally, no. Because the permanent accolade is Impact Tag Team Champion. Nobody puts for 42 days on the plaque.
That's a great point.
Once you win it, you are in the history books forever. You have proved your commercial value.
And looking at his trophy cabinet here, the value is just undeniable. NXT UK Tag Team Champion, Impact World Tag Team Champion, Attack Pro Wrestling Champion, Attack 24/7 Champion, RevPro British Tag Team Champion, King of Chaos Champion, and he is even ranked number 300 in the PWI 500 way back in 2018.
And that PWI ranking is a huge deal for a listener who might not know because it includes thousands of wrestlers globally. Being in the top 300 means you are in the elite tier of the industry. And remember, he has been active since 2010. That's the other really remarkable thing here, consistency. He hasn't had massive multi-year gaps. He's been grinding, working with top-tier talent like Wild Boar, who he held Dragon Pro titles with, and he's been doing it for 15 straight years.
And he's still going right. The source data implies he's still active, back in RevPro and Attack Pro Wrestling.
He absolutely is. The cycle just continues. He's back on the scene. He's still wearing the parka. He's still hitting the high spots, and he's still tying people in knots on the mat.
So when we take a step back and look at Flash Morgan Webster as a whole, what is the ultimate takeaway for you? Is it just that he dresses really cool?
I think the big takeaway is that he fundamentally understands packaging. Look, if you go to any wrestling school, there are hundreds of athletic guys who can do a 450 splash. There are hundreds of guys who can execute a perfect wrist lock. But by wrapping that specific skill set in this very visually striking mod packaging, he made himself completely unforgettable. You literally cannot describe him to someone without describing his look. Oh, you mean the guy in the parka?
Yeah, that is pure marketing genius.
It really is.
The elite branding. He's not just a wrestler, he's an entire aesthetic.
Exactly. And the second major takeaway has to be the undeniable power of partnership.
Yeah, we just keep coming back to Mark Andrews over and over.
Because it's so rare in professional wrestling, usually tag teams exist just to break up. One guy gets jealous, he turns on the other, they have a bloody feud, and they go their separate ways. The Rockers, the Shield, almost everyone eventually breaks up. But Webster and Andrews have stuck together across independent promotions, across continents, through firings and hirings.
It's like a rock band that refuses to break up even when their record label drops them.
And because of that intense loyalty, they are so much greater than the sum of their parts. Webster is a great wrestler. Andrews is a great wrestler. But Subculture, the unit, is championship material anywhere on the planet.
It's just a really cool, inspiring story. From a working-class kid in Bryn Mawr to becoming a guy who children all across Wales look up to. And doing it all while flat-out refusing to compromise on a very specific mid-60s fashion choice.
I still to this day do not know how he wrestles in those tailored suit pants sometimes, but he always makes it work.
Right. Maybe they're made of some secret spandex blend. We will probably never know.
Trade secrets of the MODfather.
So before we wrap this up today, I want to leave you all with a thought. Because we talk a lot about professional wrestling as a purely individual sport. Everyone wants to be the world champion, right? Everyone wants to be the singular face on the poster. But Flash Morgan Webster's career suggests something entirely different. His highest highs WWE impact, they came when he was sharing the spotlight.
That is undeniably true.
So here is the question for you to mull over. In an industry that is so heavily built on ego and selfishness, is the smartest career move actually finding someone else to share the load with? Is the lone wolf archetype actually a trap? And is finding your perfect dynamic duo the real key to longevity and success?
It's a fascinating thought. Maybe we all need a MODfather to our Mark Andrews.
Or, well, Mark Andrews to our MODfather. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Go listen to some of The Who, put on a sharp parka, and we will catch you next time.